Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Around the Lens Roundtable Discussions. Joining me this week, as always, is my co-host, Zach. Hello, Zach.
Hello, I'm back.
Back from the Minneapolis, and we're going
Yes,
to talk
yes.
all about that. Really excited to hear about your adventures out there. And joining us, our returning panelist. Glad to have him back. Your friend and mine, C.S. Muncy, also back from Minneapolis. How are you doing, C.S.?
I'm good. I'm good. Tired.
I bet. I bet.
Oh,
All right. Well, this is kind of be like the Minneapolis special edition show because essentially, you two are basically subject matter experts on being out there and documenting what was happening on the ground. So we'll start with UCS because you're obviously our guest this week. Talk to me about your Minneapolis mission. What was the assignment? Who gave it to you? And kind of walk us through what happened when you got
Well,
there.
sure. So I shot two stories while I was there. I shot the protest. That was largely for Redux, which is one of the wire services I work for. Um, that was a lot of the more kinetic stuff. So that was the protest. I was chasing Bovino around. Um, that was they called it the meat stick tour, and I can go into that a little bit more later. Um, and then I was on for Bloomberg. So JD Vance was speaking down there, and they put me on for that. So yeah, fun times.
Awesome. All right. And Zach, you were also there on assignment. Talk to us a little bit about that.
yeah, for the first time, I was actually on camera, and trying to take photos occasionally, but I was working for a live streaming outfit called Status Coup. You go live, basically interviewing people in on camera, and then I have John Farina and Will Dupre as my two videographers at different times during the trip.
Okay, awesome. Great. So let's go into kind of what it was like, you're first getting there on the ground and what it is you're experiencing. Who's like your informant? How do you know where to go? Obviously, you had specific assignments you were tasked with, CS, but were you also shooting kind of just whatever was happening besides that? Or talk to us a little about more detail, kind of what went into those assignments.
So for covering this, for covering the protests themselves, you really connected with. Um, there were two groups you connected with. Really, there's I don't know, like five or six groups, but on Signal and WhatsApp. So on WhatsApp, there were a number of journalist groups, people who
Hmm.
were working on site, and really to work down there in order to be safe, you wanted to be working with other people. You wanted them to know where you were at all times, really. You wanted to tell them where that you were, and you wanted to get a sense of like what was happening where. Um, so for instance, when we were following one of the ICE convoys, it was you could have played Benny Hill music to this because there were six or seven ICE and Border Patrol vehicles, and they were leading everyone around on this ridiculous Mary Chase. Um, So the only way you could realistically cover it to know where they were, because they weren't marked vehicles, was you would communicate with the rest of the journalists who were on site, and you put down your live location, and you kind of had a roaming network of where everyone was, and you could sort of triangulate where Bovino and where the motorcade was based on everyone else. So you would say, "Hey, I'm at the corner of so and so. Do you guys have sighting of so and so?" And that way you could kind of get ahead of them and meet the motorcade as it came to you. Um, and then there were the activists themselves, and they had various signal groups. Um, they would say, "Oh, hey, a raid is happening here. We need eyes on this." Or they would say they had this running. Um, how can I put this? They had a running. They were collecting license plates of known ICE vehicles, which was always difficult because they were constantly replacing license plates or swapping out vehicles. Um, it made it a little difficult because you would rent a car, and it would be a car that Border Patrol or ICE had used before. So suddenly you're in a chat room seeing a picture of your own car with somebody saying, "We have an ICE sighting." Um,
Yeah.
and there's only so much you can do about
That
that.
happened a lot. Yeah, there was a poor Philippe. He had one of the main vehicles that he was a long expedition or whatever, like one of those super long, with the extra row of seats, all black tinted windows, like rental car. My understanding is that they would also like they would rent the car and then tint the windows. Because even including the front windows, which is illegal in most states, so you would rent a car potentially, and yeah, it would be an ICE vehicle. It would be a former ICE vehicle, so you'd have to like go through extensive like, hey, here's my ID. Like there's people like they wrote press with the gaffer tape on the side of it. The car I was running around with was another live streamer, Andrew Mercado, and he's a local, so luckily he not only like knew a lot more of the side streets and stuff like that, but he had two like press big patches in front of the vehicle so when people walked by and eventually they recognize they would recognize you or whatever. But yeah, that was kind of a continued at least somewhat humorous, at least for us it was a humorous thing.
Did they ever try to do sort of a scramble wherein, like you said, they had a convoy, but like I would imagine if I were ICE, I would distribute my cars so you wouldn't know who to follow, right? Did
So
they
they
try to
did
do
they
that?
did do that, yeah. So there was a point we were following it around. They would drive circles around like roundabouts, or in the suburbs. They would find a little block. They would just do a circle for 5 minutes, and then they would stop. All the cars would stop, and all the journalists, all the photojournalists would wait, and then they would run out of the car to go document, I guess, the cars. And then as soon as everyone was out of their car and away from their vehicles, the ICE vehicles would take off. And sometimes they would separate. Mostly they stuck together. I wasn't really sure what the point of this thing was. There's two things going on. There was an arrest during this particular motorcade that I'm talking about, that got ugly. People were pepper sprayed. A couple people got the shot of it. It's the guy being held down, having the pepper spray 6 inches from his eyes. It's insane. Um, I don't know. I haven't got anything I can say about that. I mean, it's just awful. But that happened at the same time we were following this motorcade around. So there was a running theory that the motorcade was kind of a distraction away from actual operations. I don't know how accurate that is, but it does kind of bring me back to the meat stick run. Um, so Bovino apparently is famous for this. He would go to gas stations. He would go out, go into the gas station, pose for a little bit. He didn't hate having the cameras there, but it was also inciting a lot of people. Um, but anyways, he would go into the gas station. He would buy fistfuls of like sticks of beef jerky, and he'd come outside. He'd stand around for a little while. People would get photos. The locals would come out and protest and have pepper spray and the big 40 millimeter or whatever they are, the gas guns pointed in their faces, and then they took off. And they did this 3 times, 4 times, I think 3 times. Um, Eventually, they got to a place where the streets were so narrow, and there's so many neighbors coming out of their houses to protest against these guys that they just Ovino himself was like, "All right, gas, gas, gas." Chucked out a couple of gas grenades, and a couple of people got maced. And I'm not even sure if anybody got arrested. Like people were tossed around, people were kind of beaten up, but I don't think anybody at this scene got arrested. I think they were just antagonizing people.
Yeah, that's what they did completely regularly. I never went on a Bovino run. Um, I did see him a
That
bunch
sounds
of
like an
times.
Italian sandwich, a
Bovino
bovino,
run.
you know?
It's what you get after having a bad Italian sandwich. You get the Bovino runs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Okay.
exactly the kind of human being that he is. But his crew would often like his kind of like private crew that he would run with would often bring us on little journeys, and then one car would split off, and then everybody would kind of decide, okay, either we're going to go cover this car, you guys cover this car, or just we're all going to go cover these cars or follow them around. Um, I once went on a 45-minute long loop around the city that went into St. Paul and then back towards the federal Whipple is the federal building where they have all of their detention centers and their troops, and they would just go on this big journey. On one of the journeys, they would go to this like nice suburban area, basically, and park their cars, all jump out of the car, and then like you described, CS, like all the journalists kind of jump out, and then basically they would yell at us to stop following us or following them, and then they would get back in the car, and then we would get back in the car and keep following them, and then they would stop again and do the same thing again, and we would do it, and we're just like, we're gonna keep doing this, guys. Like, I don't know what you're doing, but like, this is our job, and this is what we have to do, because you're trying to do this, trying to do federal raids of people's homes, often without warrants, under the guise of having no press and no coverage, and no one would know anything would happen if they did arrest people, in quotes, arrest people. They would bring them back to the Whipple building, basically take away their jacket, take away their cell phone, and then like process them, in quotes, like, which is hilarious, even compared to like what the NYPD does or whatever. I actually, controversially, we can get into this, I read live on air what they're supposed to do, because somebody had broken into when they evacuated an area Wednesday night when I got hit in the head, and chaos. They shot somebody in the
Oh my
leg,
God.
like with a gun, not with like the pepper pellets or anything like that. Like, I've read a whole bunch of things that live on air that I got threatened by about 1,000 people on Twitter that I was going to jail for committing treason.
Oh
But
my
oh well.
God. Jesus.
I didn't do anything illegal at all. I know what can be read on the laws, but I was reading stolen documents that were stolen out of I think we don't know what federal law enforcement officers truck, that they just left behind because that's how well trained they are. But just basically a constant chaotic thing, because they have no idea what they're doing. They're just there to sow chaos in the city, hopefully potentially cause a riot. They really, really desperately want to. I don't know if they actually want to do the Insurrection Act, if Trump really wants to do that, or whether he just wants to say, "Hey, look at this blue city. Look at what they're doing. They're burning their cities down and everything like that." Meanwhile, what really is happening is that basically Bovino's crew or I guess Tom Homan's crew now, is just driving through the city, committing an incredible large number of traffic infractions without any lights on. They would just run through lights or whatever, and nearly cause accidents along the way.
Oh, they
And
did. I actually ran
oh, you,
into, yeah, I saw they trashed one of their trucks
mm,
on the freeway. I saw that my
Oh
first day
no.
there.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, yeah. My first day, I landed, left the airport with Mercado and the Status Quo crew, and we immediately went to a scene in the kind of the main drag that they were patrolling, which is the Somali neighborhood, and it was like a huge number of Somali, Hispanic neighborhood. It was like all kind of intermingled. So it's kind of all the a honeypot of basically people that they really wanted to pick up because they were of a certain shade. And what I witnessed was that they had run a car off the road, pulled the person out of the car, thrown them in the back seat with no time whatsoever to check if the person had an ID, no check if nothing whatsoever. They just saw a license plate that matched what their database had, and then threw the person in the back seat of the car, tear gassed and pepper sprayed the area, and then drove away and left the car abandoned with its doors open and somewhat destroyed on the side of the street. And that's a regular enough thing happening in Minneapolis that the mayor has actually come out and said that basically, if you are detained, if you are arrested by ICE, and then later released, we won't be charging what is it called? Basically, the towing fees that the city normally would think if you left your car on the side of the road. Like that's how often it happens. There's dozens of people's photos of this happening on the side of the street. So
Oh, yeah,
it's
one of those signal chats I think was just for
yeah,
abandoned car. They're not abandoned, but
yeah,
abandoned
yeah,
cars from all the arrests.
yeah.
So you guys got into the town, you started to get these signal chats and these other chats. By the way, like the signal chats, I mean, were these just freely given to you by the protesters? Like you made connections with the protesters, or were these shared by other journalists?
It's a mix of
Um,
both.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, mostly it was other for us. It was like other journalists kind of had it, and they shared them, and we try to keep them very low key because what's actually happened over the last couple of days is that the right wing Twitter hordes that want this and love the idea of basically people being shot in the streets and things like that, and are really enjoying it and continually posting f around and find out about Alex Pretty and Renee Good being killed. They found out about the chats and got into them, and now basically made them, basically we're just trying to give out false information and do everything like that. So, unfortunately, I don't know what the security is going to look like for these getting into these chats going in the future, but they're basically just trying to destroy any kind of like community, peaceful organization that they have, and so more chaos. But
Yeah, the misinformation was really bad.
yeah, yeah.
Were there public forums for updates? So, like, were there people tweeting, like, oh, ICE is at Fifth and Main, everybody head down there? Were there any sort of reliable, like, public advocates you could go to for information, or was it all
Oh, it was
just
all
chats?
public. So none of this was vetted. They did it with the full knowledge that like anyone could sign up for it. It
Hmm.
wasn't hidden in any way. Um, but it did. I mean, it was an active problem, particularly for the press, because when you're getting misinformation saying, "Hey, there's 10 ICE vehicles conducting a massive raid at Target," and you go there to the other side of the city and there's
Yeah,
nothing going on,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a problem,
yeah,
sure.
and there's not really a good solution to it.
yeah.
No, you just got to put like a tracking device on all the
Yeah.
vehicles, and then
I had joked about putting
just
be
kidding.
like next time we see one of their trucks, I just throw a little Apple AirTag on it, and I'm just like, and I was like, yeah, probably not a good idea. Probably that's I'm sure that's some sort of federal crime.
Mhm.
But yeah, so
So, you got the assignment from your various press agencies. What's kind of like the first thing you're doing with your kit? How are you kind of prepping your kit to go out there? Did you come out there with everything you needed, or did you have to get stuff on the ground? And what'd you take with you?
So what I take with me, so I actually overpacked as I want to do. I packed, let's see, I had a Z9 and a D5, a 24 to 70, a 7200, a 200 to 500, and a 16 to 35. Um, and I brought a film camera with me too. I brought
Of
a
course you do.
F6, of course. But I actually never had time to use it because every time
yeah,
something
no,
was going on, you only have time for what's right in front of you and what's in your hand. And there's just not time to swap out from digital to film.
yeah,
Um, you just kind of have to keep going. And so by the second day, I had just left the film camera back in the place I was staying. Um, I wanted to. I really. Oh, and the next fan, of course. Um, I wanted to shoot film. I love shooting film, but there was just no time for it.
yeah.
Um, so I did that. I brought a mask. Uh, when they popped smoke and gas and whatnot, I remembered all my CBurn training, all my chem warfare training, and it
Which
did
you should
me.
be current on.
I am. It did me no good
Oh.
because my mask wasn't in a bag. It was literally just hanging off my side. So I brought it up to my face in a gas-filled environment. I
Yeah.
tried clearing it, no luck. So I thought I had cleared it.
Ugh.
It was,
Ugh.
it was terrible. I sucked down a ton of it. I tried to keep shooting. I had to step away for a good like 2 or 3 minutes because felt like it's funny. I actually had a dream last night that somebody was smearing my face with wasabi,
Oh my
and
God.
I just realized like that's exactly what it felt like. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, that stuff when it's like right next to you and you're like sucking it down, it feels like somebody's just like blasting you in the face with wasabi.
Yeah, yeah, it's super fun. I brought everything, and basically the first night that it was a really big thing, had none of it ready as well. I was interviewing, again, like, your spatial awareness when you're not taking photos is so completely different when when you're interviewing people. So the first Wednesday night, it was 2 nights, 2 days into me being there, so I hadn't really experienced much. Mainly, we were doing what we call ice fishing, is basically just chase ice around. Well, we were saying ice hunting, and then we're like, probably better to say ice fishing. But also it's funnier. And but we were actually a whole crew of us. This is before CS got into town. But a whole crew of us were all sitting because it was like 7 o'clock at night. Unless something, if something had already happened in the day, um, by 7 at night, we basically almost everybody, except for an occasional live streamer that would just go to Whipple, where there's a kind of an ongoing protest outside of the federal building. We would all go to a restaurant, whatever, and do the whole journalist thing where we share stories and talk about, what we did and what we need to do to what's going on tomorrow, and kind of, share news.
Trauma bonding.
Yeah, exactly. Also trauma bonding and drink, excessively. And so we were at a bar. We were at a fantastic pub, Lions Pub. If you're in Minneapolis, they're good, excellent people. Lyons. It's in downtown Minneapolis. And they treated us very nicely, and also gave us of things that we should probably know. But we were like 10 of us all in this bar, and we hear about this shooting that happened where they were doing a raid on a house. ICE claims that it was one person doing this raid on the house, which is a straight up lie. They do not. They never do. They certainly would never do a raid on a house alone. So what they were doing, they basically tried to pull this guy out of the house, and then supposedly were attacked by two men with snow shovels. And in the fight, for some reason, they shot the guy they were arresting, not the people, and they shot him in the leg. And basically, that brought everyone out in this area of Minneapolis. And so we found out about this. Basically, paid our bill, never got any of our food, and ran the hell out the door, grabbed our stuff, and kind of ran out the door. So like I was like, we were kind of, I forgot my helmet, I forgot my bump cap even, and so like it was just totally unprepared. I had my gas mask, but that was basically about it. And so we ran out there. We status quo went live pretty quickly because they had already started tear gassing people and shooting pepper pellets and whatever. But we worked our way kind of on a side street, and this is like everything's covered in physical ice, like literally ice, because it's so cold already there. And I was doing an interview with a woman about 15, 20 feet away from the front line. And then, boom, right as we started the interview, I got like one question in. They started shooting off tear gas canisters. I think it was a ricochet. I got hit with something on a bounce and hit in the back of the head because my idiot self was facing halfway back to with my where the guns were, which is the bad thing you're obviously not supposed to do. But since I was talking to somebody, I was making sure that they, the shot was right more than my own safety, like an idiot. And so from there, then it was try to put on a tear gas mask, which I just kept it right around my neck on a constant basis. There's no time to pull it from a backpack or whatever. Like when you're chasing ice, it's stupid to have it like ready that much, but like when you're out in a scene like that, it was you kind of got to have it around your neck. But basically, I could never get a proper seal on it for some reason. And so I basically like half the time I was holding it up. I also was trying to talk on the microphone, and I didn't want to have that Darth Vader voice as much as possible. So I was kind of like pushing it up and, kind of talking around it on a continual basis. And then in the pitch darkness, and they kept shooting people. I ran into a tree branch, and that's how I ended up. The tree branch went straight to my nose. I had a big
Ugh.
cut here, and I was gushing blood and my basically for the rest of the time, like literally wiping away blood and like wiping it because while trying to like basically get checked, that I was like, do I not look like I'm like, did I look like I got like shot in the shot or something like that, because by my on camera, and thankfully it wasn't as bad as it felt, but I just kept white. Yeah, but it was a bad scene that first night, and from then on, I at least wore I had my bump cap here, or at least wore my bump cap under my baseball cap or whatever. Because of course my helmet that I've had for years, the buckle decided to break like the
Oh
second day I was
no.
there. So yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I brought a bump cap, I brought a helmet, I brought my gas, like the half respirator, it's a P100,
Hmm.
which is recommended for anyone listening. And and then the biggest thing though was the biggest problem was is that especially later in the week, especially when you got there, CS, was that if you are going there or if you are going to cover anything in the north, bring long johns, bring the
Mm.
best possible
Yep.
gloves you can do,
It
Sure.
was
and
-22, I think, when
Oh
I
my
yeah,
left.
God.
yeah, yeah.
Yeesh.
Yeah. We had John Farina, our cameraman, in the previous week, he had gotten frostbite on three of his fingers. Ford Fisher had also gotten, almost frostbite. He's still like has like feeling that was the biggest, honestly, one of the biggest problems because like we all know how to deal with tear gas and pepper pellets and kind of all that stuff. We have safety gear for that, but like when you're having to be out there for hours,
Yeah.
and there's really not a way of like getting in and out easily. Like you just have to be there,
Yeah.
waiting. There was
In
really,
fairness, we from the north. We know how to deal with this. The north remember.
yeah. No, no. I mean, I certainly mentally was. I used to live in Alaska, like mentally prepared. My problem is my soft person was I've been in freaking Virginia for the last 4 years, so like I've lost some of the cold, you know, ability to survive. I didn't have the gear, so actually we had to go run out to REI and spend a ton of money
Oh
there because
man.
I just couldn't find any of my gear that I had from when I lived in Alaska and like we CS and I drove well, I drove it, you were a passenger. It was before you had a license. We drove the Alaska Highway back in 2014, so yeah.
Wow. And what about eye gear? Do you guys have any like eye pro to protect? Because I mean, you heard about, them shooting off. I mean, obviously you got your glasses, Zach, but anything like safety goggles or anything like that, just in case they shot you in the face with a one of those safety rounds or whatever. I don't
Yeah,
know what they call
the
them.
less lethal.
Less lethal rounds.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
there
the
was
rubber
one guy
bullets.
who got blinded
Yeah.
by them.
Yeah. I had just kind of like the construction kind of like over goggles. They weren't really airtight or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
That's something I'm still trying to work on because these stupid glasses are way too big to fit. I have a full face mask respirator
Right.
that has the everything, but my glasses don't fit in it.
Sure.
So and I'm farsighted, so I mean like it I can kind of walk around like for the most time when I was getting tear gas, I just had my glasses off
Hmm.
because they were just fogging up because it was cold. And then when you get,
Hmm.
go through that whole process and everything like that, but I just took on my glasses, which was its own level of kind of, which is partially why I ran into a freaking tree and
Hmm.
bloodied my face.
Sure.
But yeah, that's like literally I'm shopping and trying to figure out what the best solution doing anything but like we're getting swim goggles is I'm still trying to figure out what to do.
I mean,
It's kind of
honestly, you might want to consider going to a military surplus store and just getting a regular gas mask. I mean, you've got a real gas mask with,
yeah, no,
you got the ability to filter out the air and you've got the eye protection. And you can
yeah.
also put the inserts for the lenses for your
Yeah, no, so I
prescription.
mean I have that. I have like a 250, I have a really good gas full face respirator gas
Hmm.
mask. I
Yeah.
just have to get the lenses or I have to figure out what
Oh,
to
right.
do. Or more importantly, I just have to get a smaller pair of glasses.
Sure.
These are just stupidly big frames. So I have a
Hmm.
really small pair of glasses that are old that fit over it. But it was like switching and everything. I just decided to go with the half respirator, and then I thought,
Hmm.
okay, I'll get goggles, and I just never had a chance because like literally it was we were there, and then every single moment either we were going around chasing ice, or we were at Whipple, and like it was 12-hour days. Basically, we'd wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning and then finish at 9, and that was
Wow.
just live. That was not editing. That was not anything. Thankfully, we
Ugh.
didn't have to do anything from our team. We just send it. We're just doing a live feedback via a live view.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine having to do the post
Do you
processing.
CS? Do you have a what is your gas mask now? Are you wearing a full face respirator or do you have the
Yeah,
half?
no, I used a full face one,
Okay.
which again, if you do it right, it's a
Mhm.
great thing. If you don't do it right, like they train us twice a year to do for the last 20 years, you just suck down a face full of that crap. But yeah, no.
That's tougher to flush though. Like the half face respirator usually because obviously you don't have to care about your eyes, whatever, which are burning. Which like for the most part you can kind of walk away from the main badness in your eyes, at least my eyes, like I don't know, maybe I'm just like I've had enough of it that I can kind of like deal with it to some extent.
Your eyes have
It's the
developed a
breathing.
callus.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Bovino.
Is your respirator the one with the high end one with the dual side insertion filters, or is it the
Yeah.
old fool with the screw on
Oh no, I
one
have the
side?
I have the painter's mask that the half face respirator from 3M. I just got new modules or whatever for the big, the ones that have pink
Hmm.
modules. I can actually go get it if we really need to, but
How about you,
um
CS? What's yours?
Um, I can
Old
go
school or new
grab it if
school?
you want. No, it's a, it's basically a fancy painter's
Yeah.
respirator. I have a military style gas mask, or a military gas mask. I don't love bringing it to these things for a bunch of reasons.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest is the one I've got is actually brightly colored. It's
Right.
not threatening. It's not intimidating. Doesn't give you
Hmm.
that bug eye look. And
Sure.
I'll be honest, like I go to these things a lot, and I have a lot of people who think I'm a cop. I'm a 6'3" white dude
Hmm.
with a chest vest on, and
Hmm.
uh, it invites a lot of comparisons.
Sure.
So I anything I can do to like dispel that notion, I like to do. So like a brightly colored face mask, I
Hmm.
will wear that 9 times out of 10 more than the military gas mask.
yeah.
Right. It's
No,
probably for
that's
the
certainly
best.
better. So I mean, like I have the big one.
Right.
That's the
Um,
exact same one I've got.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it has these modules. I've used this a couple times and it's been fine. The big problem is once it got cold, is that having this and trying to keep a seal when you're wearing like a snow cap or anything like that, and trying not to switch back and forth is a problem. And then what I wore for the most part was just this guy right here. I bought new modules. Actually, I got to change those. Um, so I mean, I should actually be careful when I'm tapping this.
Hmm.
This is honestly what I recommend for the most part, and then just
Okay.
getting like goggles if you
Right.
don't have to wear glasses. Um, just so you have an airtight thing, and that's the easiest thing to kind of like pull it on and off. And I always, what I have for head protection for the most part, if I when it's not terrifyingly cold, I wear this under my baseball cap. It's just a bump cap. There's like a rubber kind of thing around here for 90% of what's going to be shot at you at any range. This is perfectly fine. Um, and then what I normally wear is I'll do a whole thing about this, planning on doing it later in the week for Around the Lens and for Visa News, but is getting do not get to wear a normal bicycle helmet. Get something that has like low back protection. If you see here how it works. So basically climbers helmets are one of the best. They cost about 40 to $60. You don't really need to spend anything more than that. Also like this one has like a nice dial that like tightens it in and everything like that. And so um, that's what I recommend. Like it's not that expensive. Don't buy anything stupid or crazy because you'll probably end up losing it
Yeah.
at some point.
Or
So
breaking it.
yeah, I mean I have my I don't know where it is. Oh, I have my military helmet that's my $5,000
Oh
this
yeah.
guy.
That's
Yeah.
that's fancy.
Yeah. So
All right, great.
that was a gift. So
Yeah, so you arrive on scene, you get all the connections, you follow ICE, and then basically when they get to a point where they're actually doing something like a raid or whatnot, is it moving pretty fast? You're kind of jumping out and trying to get into the scrum, and you're competing with other photographers for the best shot. So you're getting really close with wide angles, or are you trying to stay far back so you're not like attracting unwanted attention and shooting with a di long lens in the distance, therefore sacrificing other photographers who might want to get closer? Because when I think about, and I've seen some of the scrums, it looked very similar to kind of like what I did when I was a paparazzi, where it's like you got a bunch of photographers all trying to get that picture of, you know, Jared Leto or Leonardo DiCaprio or whatever. And so it's a war of attrition because you can't stay far back because other people will get closer, which forces other people you to get closer, and then it becomes a mass and a mob, and it looks like every time you've ever seen paparazzi on television, that's what happens. So I'm curious, is that something that kind of was similar when you all were trying to get the shot? You were just competing with hordes of other photographers and it was just a big scrum, or could you keep your distance if you wanted to?
It really depends on what you're doing. So For the motorcade, yes and no. There was a lot of cars, but it wasn't. The scene was so spread out that, except for when he went into the gas stations, um, you really weren't climbing all over each other. A lot of it was just hurrying up and waiting.
Mhm.
So, like when there was like we were following a van, like three vans of what we thought were ice, and we followed them. I don't know, for probably an hour or two, and we were the only one on scene because everything's so spread out and the information is unreliable. So when you find one, you stick with them, even when they're just, doing nothing or eating sandwiches or whatever. But when it happens really fast, really, really fast. You don't have a lot of time to think about it. So mostly I just stuck with the old regulars. It was 24 to 70 and a 70 to 200 on two different bodies. And um, the one thing I tried to do is make myself the second, the most unthreatening person in the crowd. Because when you get up in front of these guys, they don't like you, they don't want you there, and uh, when things go
Shocking.
loud, yeah, when things go loud, you don't want to be the first one they think of. So it's a lot of sorry, I'm backing up if I need to. It's um, decorative camouflage. You're really just trying to be the gray man there. So I know other photographers who will get in faces and they get great shots that way, but it's not the first thing I go for anymore, mostly because I don't really like getting shot in the face with
Yeah.
pepper spray. Um, yeah, it's slow until it's not.
So if you and Zach were both on the scene at the same time, you would just put Zach in front of you and you would just hunker down behind him, right? Is
Yeah,
that
you throw up one elbow onto the back so he can't back up, and you shoot over his shoulder.
Yeah.
exactly?
Just
Um,
hold me.
Yep,
Yeah, yeah, great. Thanks for that.
human
so
tripod.
were you ever two together at the same place at the same time?
No, our schedule didn't work out. We met up the night before Zach left.
Yeah,
Okay, but you were never shooting the same thing at the same time.
yeah.
Not here, no.
Is that because there was so much going on in so
No,
many different parts of the
yeah,
city
no.
that, there was just a wealth of opportunity, or it never worked
I
out
think
like that?
we just only had one day of overlap. You got
Okay,
in
got
the
it.
night before I was leaving, and then yeah. So I think the only thing that happened the one day that we were both in town was, or no, maybe I was leaving the next day. Yeah, no, I was leaving the next day. Like, so I was literally you didn't get in until like halfway in the day, and yeah. So I mean, like, we were never. I don't think there was anything happening at the same time when we were in town both together, or at least I spent half of my last day doing a sit down interview with somebody that I previously interviewed that like the video went viral. So yeah.
There was one thing that happened that night, just as we were leaving, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody found a couple of ICE agents grabbing dinner or something and started screaming at them. And it was the first action, and I actually missed it by like 3 minutes. Um, so they started screaming at him. ICE called for backup, and for one guy, they brought out like 5 cars and 10 agents, and they had, their rifles up and whole 9 yards. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was that kind of a place.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that was the only thing that happened while we were both in town at the same
Yeah.
time.
I had a 6 a.m. flight, so I went to bed.
So obviously there's still stuff going on in Minneapolis, but you're back here, you're back in your homes, right? So like what kind of was the limiting factor in terms of staying out there longer? Was it just the entities that kind of put you up for the assignments pulled you back, or was it your own desire to come back, or kind of what was sort of the impetus there? Because I'm sure you could still be out there right now documenting if you wanted to, right?
For me, it was just the sunk cost. Even if I only had my rental for, I don't know, until what, a couple days ago. And if I were to extend it and change my plane tickets and extend my parking at LaGuardia, even with all that, I'd be spending more money to stay there than I'd be bringing in. So they wanted to put me on assignment for another day or two, and I couldn't. I wouldn't make enough money to make it worthwhile, and I regret that a little bit because there were other stories that went on the day that I left.
But if you're on assignment, I mean, don't they recognize and understand that they have to cover your expenses if they want you to cover the story? I mean, am I
Mm.
am I am I naive? Help me
Some,
understand this.
sometimes, but that would be easily twice what I was making that day.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, one of the issues is that there was a car rentals were really expensive in town,
Mm.
and
Mm.
also the work that you're doing, you really do need to get the insurance. And so like thankfully I didn't have to rent a car when I was there, but like my status coup did, and it was $200 a day for an SUV. And
Oh, for an
so
SUV.
yeah, well, I mean, you just have to because
For
you have to
almost
have
any
something. You have
vehicle.
you have to have something with four-wheel drive,
All right.
or all-wheel drive. It's not a question, especially the last week, that we're there.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's like the hotels actually are not that expensive, if you know where to look and everything like that. But like, unless you're riding with like a crew, of other people, which like everybody's very generous. I mean, it was like it was wild. Like we just kind of got hanging out, splitting costs, occasionally paying, you pay for gas one time, we pay gas for the second time. Um, but it's wildly expensive. I mean, like I'm looking at going back in there. Unfortunately, I'm flying out of either Norfolk or Charleston, and it's $700 round trip to Minneapolis, and then a car rental. Basically, the whole thing. If I was to stay there for 5 days, it would cost me about $1,500, and almost that is basically the going day rate for many places, like.
Hmm.
And so, which I wouldn't necessarily mind if somebody's listening and wants to send me out there for a break even rate, as long as I own my own work. I'll happily do that because I really want to get back out there. But yeah, no, I mean, thankfully I have somebody watching my dog who doesn't charge me. I just have to, buy him dinner or whatever. It's later on. That's why I'm driving down tomorrow. But if I had to do that, then that's another, huge expense, getting a dog sitter and everything. So it's it's thankfully there's I mean there's a lot of good journalists that are on the ground, especially the photo coverage down there is insane. I mean, Minneapolis is also blessed with some of the best local photojournalists in the world, really. At the what is it, the Trib, and I think whatever the other paper is, MNRP, also the kind of NPR, or MNRPR or whatever it is. Anyway, the Minnesota NPR also station has a lot of really great journalists there. So I mean, it's not like a lot of like when I was covering Ferguson, where it's just like, no, one of the problems with that area was the fact that it's kind of bereft of good coverage because of just like the death of local news that has happened. And so like when you kind of like parachute into an area, you are kind of contributing to something there. We're all kind of building our own stories and kind of following and catching our own angles on things. But this is like one of the few stories that I'm just like, okay, I know Status Quo is still down there. They're doing great work. And a lot of great journalists are still down there covering things. So it's not like I feel as though that, always feel like me going somewhere would add something, but that's ego, not necessarily, you know, truth. Yeah.
What were y'all capturing down there? So, like Zach, you said you were doing live streaming. CS, were you doing just photo and video? Like, were you all doing everything, or was it like you were focused on one specific medium you were trying to capture in?
It was like 90% photo. I got a couple of uh, I'm sorry, a couple of clips that I sent off to someone, see if they could use it. I don't know if they used it. I have to
Hmm.
follow up on that.
Yeah,
Um,
gotta get paid.
but realistically, like you can't do both. It has to be one or the other.
All right.
Yeah. I was desperately trying to do both, or all three things. I was there for status quo, and they if I shot video, they owned the video. If I shot stills, I still owned it. That was like kind of the kind of the contract deal with them, which I think is very fine. So like I did shoot some video when it was like I feel like as though my video could have added to the scene when we already had a videographer that was just focusing in there. But like I tried to shoot still a bunch, but it was like kind of like interviewing somebody, click, 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 click,
Hmm.
offhand, when it was a quiet moment. And I managed to do it a little bit. I had one photo just sell on my wire service,
Hey!
but it's also just one of those I wanted to document, also wanted to walk away with something that I could say that I documented the scene as well, because there's just a long, if we're not going live stream and status quo, then we're kind of like building out what we're going to do when we're on the live stream. So we're talking to people ahead of time. Oh, would you like to talk to us when we go live in like 20 minutes or whatever, and kind of doing that a little bit. But it takes a long time to get that live view up and running and everything like that. And so we have to kind of schedule when things were going. And so the first night that I was there, Monday, we went to Whipple, which is again where there's a protest crowd, and then the federal officers would come in and shoot things at everybody. Well, I went live, and then 15, like I'm not even 15. It was like literally went live. I was introducing myself as like, "Hi, this is Zach Roberts, the new, just stepping in for a week to help out our person who had been there for like a month." And boom, 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 immediately got shot at with tear gas, with flashbangs all around me. And so that was my introduction to live on camera reporting, which is yeah, super fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. So when you were shooting, were you keeping your camera on specific settings? Like I would imagine you probably would want like a high shutter speed for most of what you're shooting because you want to freeze that motion over maybe like an aperture priority, or were you shooting manual or shooting program? What were kind of like your settings? Just because it's such a fast, frenetic environment
All
when
manual
things
for me.
all manual. Okay.
Just what I'm used to.
Yeah. I was keeping my ISO just really high because just because once you get down into that shutter problem with when it's just like, because there was often, especially with the flashbangs and things like that, there was like extreme brights and then extreme darkness, and it was kind of one or the other. I mean, when we were at Whipple, there was the Federal Building, which is where a lot of like kind of the good photography that you've seen there, of just protesters interacting with law enforcement. There that is a lighted, now it is a actually very well lit situation, because the federal building brought in huge floodlights to point at the protesters.
Hmm.
And um and so it, at least there is well lit. But like when you're out and everything, I mean, basically this kind of the lighting was the same the entire week that we were there, or at least the week I was there. It was just kind of like a flat gray sky. Occasionally would be, the flat blue sky, then it would just be a little bit brighter. But yeah, I just had to remember always to, as I have this thing that I always say in the morning when I'm with a crew of photographers, I say, check your ISO. Because like the night before, you're at 6400, and then you go out, and the first 10 frames that you take in the day often are completely blown out because you forgot to change it. So, yeah.
For UCS, I mean, since you kept it on manual, I mean, were you ever worried that you were going to miss a shot because you couldn't change the settings in time, or did you just be like, well, it's outside, it's sunny, so sunny
No, I mean,
16?
no, I was shooting wide open for a lot of it. Not all of it, but no, I mean, you look through the viewfinder and you see where your exposure is. Um, More than that, I shot raw for all of it, and
Right.
there's a massive amount of leeway with raw. So
Sure.
I've been shooting manual for so long that I've just kind of gotten used to it.
Okay.
I also feel like now that I have a Z6 and a Z6 III now, and I feel like when you're shooting mirrorless now, it's like a little bit of cheating, like because you literally look in the frame and you know what your image is going to make. The only thing that might be the problem is that if you accidentally brought your shutter speed down too low, and then you're going to have drag. That's kind of the only issue that I ever find, and then I just have to kind of remember to do that. But I took photos, especially that night when someone was shot and I got hit in the head and everything like that. I took some photos that I thought were completely unsavable, but like you said, CS like raw, especially on the Nikons,
Mm-hmm.
is you can just basically save everything, and it's in the darkness. I mean, like it's supposed to be, that's the kind of part of the thing where it's just like, no, you're shooting at night in an area that doesn't have a lot of street lights when there's tear gas in the air. So like, yeah, it's going to be really dark. So like it's mostly silhouettes you're getting and things like that. You're very rarely getting like a good portrait or something like that. When at least when you're out in the streets at night. But during the day, it's just, it's kind of standard. You can tell what the lighting is, you can tell what everything is, so it's fine. It's pretty standard stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of good shots, did you all get anything that you want to either show right now on the screen if you want to do a screen share? Any like real bangers that you think, oh, this is going in the portfolio, or was it all pretty much just workman like?
Um, sure. Give me a moment. I can bring something up. Um, I mean, there's stuff that I'm happy with. Let's see.
How about you, Zach? Anything crazy you
Yeah,
got out there?
I'm kind of pulling some up things right now. I once again, I witnessed we got it in a live feed. I got a little video of it. A protester, Jake Lang, who's a right wing agitator, anti-Islam, just a all around bigot. One of the more violent J6ers. He used a baseball bat on law enforcement officers
Oof.
there, and he held what was supposed to be a big rally where he was planning to burn a Quran that had strips of raw bacon inside of it. That went very poorly. As if you kind of followed anything that happened, I actually got a very brief interview with one of the guys that showed up. Basically, 8 people showed up with Jake Lang to protest, and about probably 500 to 600 Minnesotans showed up to counter protest this tiny little thing. And so he never got to the place that he wanted to. He was supposed to go into the Capitol building and do a whole thing, and never got there. It was literally kind of hiding out in a. I'm trying to get to the photos here. He was hiding out in a like a windowsill, literally. Um, and here I'll share. Um, um, is that picking up well?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
can
is.
see what.
It's
So,
okay. Yeah. So like this is him, this moment, which it took.
oh yeah,
This is
right.
where
I heard
he
about
just kind of
this.
got hit out. Other people got better photos. Yeah, other people got much better photos because I was shooting a lot of video there, and I also was then had to run over and start the live feed and start covering this thing, and um, and so um, it was funny. I got a very short interview with this guy live on camera. He was running away from the crowd, and I caught up with him and I asked him, "Is this going the way you wanted it to go?" And he literally stopped dead, turned to me, and just said no, and then ran away. It was one of the best interviews I think I've ever done in my life. But what happened here is like it eventually other people showed up after Jake Lang had already gotten kind of run off. The Quran that he got that he was going to burn got pulled away from him,
Mm.
and thankfully somebody I religious books whatever, but like it would have been a big thing to incite, especially considering he had raw strips of bacon throughout it. He's just such a vile anyway. Just a
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
terrible. But
horrible.
other people showed up, and it turned out very badly. This guy is also kind of renowned. I forget his name. I'm blanking on his name. That we did figure out who his name is. He claimed he was just a Trump supporter and kind of supporting ICE, and he was also another kind of not a well-known but a lesser known insider. And like this is like kind of the scrum you're seeing. You see journalists all over.
Yep.
He got bonked on the head a couple times, quite poorly.
Oh man. Oof.
Trigger
Yeah, he
warning,
got.
there's going to be trigger warning, there's going to be blood.
Too late.
Um,
Already triggered.
yeah, I know, but it gets worse.
Oh
He
my
was,
God.
yeah, well, I mean, it's a head wound, so bleeds. I'm not trying to downplay it, but he was he walked us up and down the parking garage because he was trying to lose the protest or the people that, were trying to get him to go out of town.
Hmm.
So eventually he walked all the way up to the parking garage and then This is his car that got in his car, and he literally drove down the ramp that kind of goes down down parking garages, that roundabout thing, and hit a woman on the way down.
Oh
Wildly, that
God.
has not become news. We got it
Wow.
on video with seemingly the only people that got it on video. Broke through the parking meter, as you can see, and yeah, so it's that was the day that like I got some things that still I didn't see any other still photographers really get a
Right.
lot of crazy stuff in that parking garage, and yeah, unfortunately another parking garage photo set for me, but yeah.
The thing I love about those shots is of Lang is the vest.
Hmm.
Is that there's absolutely nothing inside the vest.
Yeah, it got
It's
ripped off
just
of him too.
Oh my God.
It got stolen from him. So yeah,
Wow.
somebody somewhere in the vest got the vest, and also his walkie-talkie that was on there. And I don't think we got it, but somebody was telling me that the woman that got it was going, "Hello, we have Jake Lang's vest," into the
Oh my God.
microphone, and telling him. So he
Jeez.
ended up getting away. I weirdly, this was a national news story or whatever. A trans woman picked him up because they thought he was just a person being attacked or whatever. And so they picked him up and drove him away, and then dropped him off like a couple blocks away when they figured out he was actually the very truly violent piece of garbage that Jake Lang is, which I think is a newsworthy, a news, something the AP should be printing, because there's no other way to describe this guy, because that's literally all that he is. He's not even that important to be talked about, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. CS, we've vamped long enough.
Yep.
I'm trying to share the screen. I think you have that turned off for me.
Oh,
I'll leave that up to Zach. I think he has to activate that.
uh, try now.
There we go.
Okay.
Let's see.
Close
I
all your
don't know if
tabs.
Oh, here we go. Nice.
um so I can't see you, so I don't know if this is coming through
Yeah, it
okay.
It's
is.
coming
Yeah,
through.
we see
Yeah,
it.
we
Yeah.
see it. Ooh, wow. A
Got
little
the
green.
smoke,
Was
yeah.
that tear gas or just green smoke?
I think that was just smoke.
Yeah.
I'm honestly not sure. They were spraying so much of that crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it here.
Oh man.
Um, so, you can see it got rowdy.
Hmm.
They
Gotta
really
love the
do love their
snow.
speedways. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The snow falling. That's right. Yeah. Is that CS? Is that CS gas? Is that is pepper spray in their hands?
It's something.
Yeah.
Yeah, something nasty.
Yeah. What is she
I
Yeah.
doing?
people are really really brave. Like, I know that you get your kind of adrenaline running when you're at a protest and things like that, but like the number of people that like went straight up to guys with tear gas canisters and screamed at them,
Yep.
and like and knowing that they have no problem whatsoever spraying people in the face, whether it be journalists or whether it be, I mean, what was it, John Abernathy? Did you see those photos of him getting attacked by law enforcement, by Border Patrol? He had to throw his Leica away to,
Yeah.
I think it was to
Yeah. I
Philippe.
was
Yeah.
dramatic.
I'm gonna try to get Philippe. Did you end up talking to him?
I
No.
haven't yet, but I've got all his info. I'm gonna reach out
Okay,
to
yeah,
him.
yeah. I'm gonna try to get him on the show. So if you actually want to jump in on that, we can do it like a special thing. But it's
So, funny story with that. So there's some Reddit drama that came up with that. Are you tracking that?
oh, I think you told me a little bit about it, but I think people like that story. So tell it.
So there's one mod on the Leica subreddit. He handles everything. And apparently, he is a big Trump supporter. So when this photo came out, he would delete it as soon as it went up, and everyone was like, this is an amazing photo. It's historical. It's 100 different things, and he just kept deleting it,
Mhm.
and it turned into this whole big drama um, where he would just like permanently ban anyone who mentioned it. So now there's a new like a subreddit, which is a little more, I guess, inclusive.
Yeah.
Wired did a whole thing on it, which I find really, really funny.
Yeah.
I have
Reddit is, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say I've got other stuff, but this is that's pretty much it. Um, yeah, I don't love Reddit. I'm not a like I go on it and I talk about nerdy stuff and niche stuff, but honestly, I kind of hate social media and am trying to wean myself off of it as much as I can.
Yeah. I'd say
Yeah.
for I looked it up. The MK9, the spray that they're holding, it is a defense technology red band or blue band pepper spray. So it is a just a not just, but it is a pepper spray that the ones that I've seen have like that orange kind of stickiness, that kind of famous photo from the I forget, was it wasn't Occupy, it was George Floyd protest where the officer just walked down the line, the campus officer just walked down the line spraying people that were
I think
sitting
that was
down.
pre
But
George Floyd. I know the photo you're talking about, but I
maybe
think that
during
was even
Ferguson or
before that.
something. I forget what the protests were, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But it's that orange spray that you see everywhere. They have canister, they have big canisters of it that they drop all the time, which is hilarious, like kind of hilarious if it wasn't so sad. The pepper pellet like canisters that they thing, we witnessed them all falling out of their canisters because of
Oh,
how
that's
totally and
nothing.
wholly untrained they are. Yeah,
They dropped like 3 magazines of ammo
yeah,
while I was there. Three separate incidents, and it's all all 5.56
Yeesh.
is all live ammo.
yeah,
Wow.
Expensive
That is
magazines
crazy.
too.
yeah. Well, they got the budget for it, so
Yep.
$28 billion
That's
or whatever it is. Yeah,
they do have budget. Absolutely. I noticed in a lot of pictures, and by the way, great photos, both of y'all, and I love the reaction shots and the action shots of the protesters. I thought you got a lot of great shots of just protesters in action, different facial features, and getting right in their faces. You know, both of you have shot protests for many years. I mean, I still remember Zach, your protest photos going viral of the one dude getting beaten in the parking garage or
yeah. At
whatever.
the Unite the Right rally, yeah, yeah.
Talk to me about the differences between these protests and this action and maybe a decade ago. Have you seen a lot more activist journalism, civilians, journalists, people with cell phones? Is it increased from then? Is it about the same? Are they more aggressive, less aggressive? It seems like they're more aggressive. And, there's more of them, at least from what it feels like. I mean, when you have four different angles, five different angles on one incident, it definitely feels like there's a lot more people doing it. So, kind of, what's your personal opinions or thoughts on that, or did it seem like the same old, same old?
So yes, go ahead.
Um, I would say, I mean, there's, everyone's got a phone, everyone's got a camera, so, there's a lot of that. I have been at protests where people can get very aggressive, and sometimes they get aggressive to photographers too. It happens. I didn't see
Sure.
that at all here. Most people were really happy to have other photographers there.
Right.
Um, yeah, no, I mean, it's not more of the same. This is very much a different kind of protest here because everyone would come out.
Right.
The ICE convoys would come by and people would come out of their houses to shout them down. Um,
Mhm.
it's not a pre-planned thing. There's like a sense of community about it.
Hmm.
If that makes sense. Um, yeah, aggressive is not really the word I would use for it. I mean, they aggressively dislike ICE. They aggressively come out to let them know that.
Yeah.
They'll get in their faces, but I mean, it's not like they're throwing bricks at them or anything. A lot of them are just like everyday people.
No, I wasn't necessarily saying that the protesters were aggressive. I was just thinking of the quantity or, again, were there more than normal? Or was it about what you'd normally see at a protest? Or was it bigger? Because again, like you said, you had, civilian journalists, you had just regular people, you had people coming in your neighborhoods, people coming out of their houses. Did it feel like larger, I would say, or larger scale than in the past protests, or about the same?
Um, I don't know how to quantify it. Again, it's not really, it's an ongoing thing. And yeah, there are protests that go to like the Whipple building and there's protests in the streets, but it's also a lot of it is just people coming out of their houses.
Right.
Um, so in that sense, I guess, yes, it's larger, but it's ongoing and it's less, I'd almost say it's less of a protest and more people reacting to what's going on in their community.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
I mean,
I think so.
they literally do not want to be called. I mean, I think it's actually a good description. I was describing this earlier, where when I talk about citizen journalists, I say that they're not journalists, because journalists are a
Sure.
thing. Like that is what you do. You can commit acts. Like if you fix your plumbing, you're not suddenly a plumber. Like
Citizen plumber.
you have committed an act of plumbing, and when it comes to journalism, you have committed an act of journal. Like the woman that videotaped George Floyd being murdered. She won the Pulitzer. She's part of Pulitzer team. She got credit for that. She committed an act of journalism, and I think that there's a lot of people doing that. But I think that what they're doing here is like most of these people are not activists in the way that if you go to a big protest in DC, there's people that consider themselves activists. It's not their full-time job, but it's part of their identity. People here are genuinely not activists. Like almost every person that I talked to was like, I was sitting at home, not caring about whatever, and then I saw Renee Good was murdered. I got on the street, and so like I think that the term that has kind of been decided is calling them commuters. Um, and it's community. I don't know if it's community oriented or just people that travel around or whatever. The people that kind of show up if ICE is in your neighborhood, suddenly 25 people show up with their phones out, recording everything. And none of them really consider themselves citizen journalists. They're just documenting the scene in the
Hmm.
way that they will, yelling at ICE and doing their thing. Kind of mostly the idea is, one of the reasons the ICE protests, or the Whipple protest happen is to basically cause a number of ICE to be in a certain location. And the idea is that any amount that you can slow down these people from doing their thing, it potentially saves somebody from being kidnapped by them. And I say kidnap because they're not using warrants, they're just pulling people out of the car. It's kidnapping. It's federal kidnapping. Like, but it's like that. So I mean, like it is like there's obviously a ton of people that I think that would consider themselves activists, but I don't think that they're on the ground there. It I I was lucky that because when I was on the ground, I got really status quo was like kind of it was already down in the ground there for weeks ahead of time. So when I got on air and then immediately got like hit in the head and like had a bunch of clips that went very viral. I had my Pickle Rick interview was stolen by The Daily Show. I interviewed a guy in
Oh,
a Pickle Rick costume, and like all these clips were everywhere. So I was actually noticed. It was actually incredibly helpful for once to be noticed. I was continually getting like, hey, Zach, hey, they didn't know my name, but status quo, and like recognizing me. And usually that terrifies the hell out of me. I got recognized in front of my Airbnb. Like somebody just literally skid out, stopping and jumped, basically hung out of the side of the car yelling, status quo. And I was like, because usually, in my line of work is if somebody notices you, you're about to potentially get beat up or something like that. But
mhm.
it was helpful in the way that like it was people would make a hole for me, like make a space for me if they saw
Wow.
me and my camera crew coming through. And so I think that in a way, the moment they know, like CBS was there and they got harassed, and Fox News was there and once they figured out Fox News was basically undercover. And buying people's work and things like that,
Mm,
because they knew they couldn't cover the scene without getting screamed at on a continual basis.
mhm.
Because because basically they were literally going on air and then lying about what was happening. Like you could watch Fox News clips and be like, I was physically there, and they just are lying about who the people were and what they're doing and everything. And so um but I would say the vast majority of press, everybody that I talked to, other than the weird stuff that was going on with the chat rooms where they'd be like, "Oh, this SUV, a friend of mine, or now a friend of mine, after being there for a week, his SUV was labeled as an obvious plant because it had press in these really kind of drawn out in gaffer's tape on the side of the car, and it looked like the free candy, on the side of a truck." And so everybody on the side of the van, like free candy, like written in scrawled letters. And so everybody on the chats were continually like, this guy's obvious ice. And they were like continually having to go, no, like I actually like talked to people. Actually did a live air report. And I was just like, hey, look if you see this vehicle, I can promise you from Status Coup and from myself. And so like that was their media. And so like that was kind of the only problem. But they weren't being harassed. They were just kind of being like, hey, can you just like leave the area because you're making people nervous? And everybody's incredibly nice. They're very happy to have journalists on the ground there. But again, if CBS shows up, they know they literally were lying, and and then literally they did like a walkthrough of the protest along the police line or the ICE line, and then ICE came out specifically for them to do this press hit. You could tell that it happened that way. They showed up on the scene, and then ICE came out of the building and then got into it with the protests, and they were able to film it. And then the moment CBS was done with their hit, whatever media hit they did, they turned around, left the area, and then immediately the ICE officers or it's Bureau of Prisons, ATF, it's a whole bunch of different federal office agencies that are down on the ground, but they all left immediately. And so you could tell that it was just Barry Weiss needed her media hit, and she was, and they got it. And so protesters are smart enough to see that, and I think people were really appreciative of the photojournalists that are on ground there. But like for mostly, the network news and stuff like that, like they were nowhere to be found. Like it was really wild to see
Interesting.
that towards the end of the week that I was there, like they would be kind of stationed off with their ENG cameras doing, stuck on tripods way away from the protest. They
Yeah.
wouldn't get into anything. So it was like this kind of wild thing where it's just like, I don't know how you can cover this if you're on a tripod 50 feet away from where the protest is. And
So I,
so,
I, I can
yeah,
answer that actually because
yeah,
I did that for
yeah.
like a year and a half, 2 years. So they are very, this is before I was a cameraman for CBS for a year and a half. Um, and this is before the change in management. Um, the equipment is very expensive, and they are extremely conservative when it comes to like putting their gear in danger. But more than that, like
Mm.
they worry about their camera people
Yeah.
getting hurt.
Hmm.
So even
Yep.
with like basic protests, they are like, "Hey, it's not worth it. Come on out." Like I was doing what's it, the Columbia University stuff, and when they cleared the campus for the final time, I was like, "Hey, I'm on campus. I'm here. I'm going to stay here for the duration." And they're like, "Nope, you're out. Like we don't want to put you at risk, so come on out." And I agree with you, Zach. Like I think it's a bad way
Yeah.
to cover this stuff, but I know why they do it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
Well, they're on the hook
perplexing
for
that.
workman's comp, and I imagine,
Well, I mean, the thing is though that like, I mean, they all had security there. They had if I could draw a line, it's literally have like this like big front line, and then there was a road dead in the center of the protest where they would kind of push people back in, and parked on the road were kind of the security teams of news agencies that were there. I think Reuters. I saw a fellow journalist that I think we both know, who occasionally works as security for Reuters. I saw him there. So I mean, like they had security people there with their photographers, with people that just really are really good at situational awareness and kind of like knowing what to watch for and things like that. It wasn't as present as been at some protests. I mean, like the last I covered a J6 protest, a rally actually for earlier this month, and like I got harassed by some security. So I mean, which was really weird, because I guess I was suspicious with just having cheap gear. But yeah, I don't understand on how. I understand the safety aspect to some extent, because they'll just throw freelancers at it. They'll just buy Ford Fisher's work, they'll buy my work, they'll buy your work. I mean, they'll just buy work that they don't have to worry about the healthcare of, which is kind of hilarious. I mean, everybody does that. The New York Times, famously does that regularly when they send war photographer, people over to wars. They'll be on a freelance contract. They won't be staffed, so they don't have to pay, healthcare or whatever. And but it is I think it's a detriment to the news media that they can't just. I mean, you can buy a $5,000 camera that has a live hookup, or you can get I mean, we're in the ground with I think my videographer had a A7, was it A7S3. I don't really know Sony. So like that, basically the better had that, and then we had a live view pack, which is just like basically 4 cell phone cells in a backpack kind of thing. and we were able to broadcast perfectly fine. And our work goes everywhere. We have hundred thousands of views. There's absolutely no excuse for network news to not actually cover things, and to cover things stuck on a tripod, basically in a parking lot, far away. Like I understand why they think they do it and what their excuses are, but like they're really missing on talking to people, I mean, because they have to pull them away from the scene. You don't get what the vibe is on the ground. You get this kind of like withdrawn, perfect audio situation, and everything like that. Which again, I understand why producers that are 60 years old are doing it, because there's that's the way they've done it for 60 years. But it is truly wild. Like it's like the number of views that like Status Coup has compared to like what, like some of my videos have like, or some of my live streams have like view counts of like which beat like network news, or beat like MSNBC or CNN's like nightly news counts. And it's just like the fact that they're like leaving that kind of view on the ground, um is kind of it's been something that I talked about a lot live on air, but also just like nobody understands it. And they think that like protesters on the ground really think that like, oh, they don't really care about covering this. And sometimes they try to explain, it's like, well, they have a $60,000 camera over there. They don't want to get it in the thing. But then maybe you shouldn't have a $60,000 camera. I mean, maybe you should have a $5,000 Panasonic, which does exactly the same job as a stupid ENG camera, and that they're still obsessed with. I don't know. I don't want to get into it, but it's like I don't understand why. But you could do the exact same job and then have a live view stuck to it, and it works exactly the same way. But I don't know. Maybe that's why I don't get hired whenever I apply for jobs. So
There you go. Well, I'm sure they can get all the imagery they want from the many
yeah,
freelancers
yeah.
and wire reporters out there. I mean,
Or they
as we
just or they
learn,
just or they just steal it, so it's fine.
that too, that
Yeah.
too. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for taking time, giving us the on the ground insight. Obviously, get great for you going out there and getting that very important imagery that's historic in nature and very newsworthy. So appreciate all that. Before we say goodbye to our guest, CS, anything you want to throw in there and mention before we say goodbye to you?
No, I think we got it all. Life's not terribly exciting since getting back, so
Yeah, you want to get back out there and do it, or the next thing,
yeah.
right? What's the next thing on the horizon, right? Where's the next hot spot we want to go to, or
Yeah,
has it erupted yet?
probably Philly, or
Philly,
there's a couple of, yeah, wherever they're going to move next, because
right?
I wouldn't want to be on the record about this, but I guess I'm on the record about it. I think that they're going to be leaving the next couple days.
Yeah.
Even though Tom Homan, somebody who's I've written about extensively, who's replacing Bovino, is a complete and utter lunatic. I mean, he's admitted that he's a conspiracy theorist about the anti-Semitic trope of the Great White Replacement theory. He believes in
Hmm.
it. I have it
Yeah.
on video of him saying that he believes in it. And
Oh my God.
and so he's going in there, but he's also, I think that Trump sees the polls numbers, and they're
Hmm.
going to have to move to another city.
Hmm.
And yeah, I hope it's not Philly, because I think that Philly, I wouldn't fuck with Philly. like, Minneapolis is filled with nice people. Philly is filled with great people, but they ain't nice.
Maybe they'll come to New York and then right in your backyard. See us. We won't even have to travel anywhere. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, yeah, it would simplify things.
I actually I was talking with this with a couple other journalists, and like talking about how completely insane it would to be to try to cover um operations like this in New York City, because you can't drive around like complete madmen like we were all driving following ICE around. You can't, but it's, you can jump on subways or whatever, but like the timing of things, but it would be immediately so noticeable. There's no way that ICE would be able to do an operation on an apartment building, or even like more suburban when it comes to Queens, without having literally 3,000 people show up to their operation within 10 seconds. Because there's just that many people in the city. So I think if they come to New York City, it's going to be more of a suburban operation. But on the other hand, I also don't see them doing the kind of raids and shit like that they were doing in Minneapolis, in Long Island, where there's a lot of Republican voters, and they would get really irritated that, oh my God, I was, shoveling my driveway and I smelled tear gas, and this is horrible. So I don't know. Trump will move on to something else, maybe. I hope to God, for the sake of people who are in this country, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, we'll be watching very closely. All right. Well, I think that's it for our episode tonight. Thank you for joining us for this Minneapolis protest special edition. Thanks, guys, so much for giving your insights into everything that's going on over there, and look forward to seeing what you end up doing next. Zach, anything you want to throw out before we say goodbye?
Go over to vstu.news, my newsletter. I have a couple pieces about Minneapolis up. I'm going to be publishing some more up there, so please subscribe. And if you like what you see, subscribe and hopefully send me back to Minneapolis or wherever the next scene is. So yeah. So
Awesome. And of course, CS Muncy Photo is still a thing, right?
Yep.
Sweet. All right, csmuncyphoto.com for everything CS does. That's great. Okay. Well, that's been it for this episode of Around the Lens Roundtable Discussions. Thank you, CS. Thank you, Zach. I'm Dave, and then we are out of here. See you next week.